You've got the calm quote saved, the disciplined posts, the morning routine, and still, the second someone disagrees with you, it all falls apart. The philosophy you can quote and the one you can live are two different things. You can recite the line about controlling your reactions and still lose your temper in traffic. You can quote the part about not needing anyone's approval and still refresh the post to see who liked it. The quotes didn't hold. They were never load-bearing. So what if the problem was never that you didn't know enough Stoicism, but that knowing it and living it are two completely different things, and almost no one tells you where the second one actually comes from? If you'd rather build a Stoicism that actually survives a bad day than collect another quote that doesn't, subscribe. That's the whole promise of this channel. Ancient wisdom you can use, not just admire. And if that's not what you're here for, no hard feelings, keep watching, because this next part changes how you read every quote you've ever saved. Here's what almost no one teaches you about this philosophy. Marcus Aurelius wrote one line that holds the whole thing inside it. The soul becomes dyed the color of its thoughts. Not dyed the color of the quotes you post. The color of the thoughts you actually think, in private, on a bad day, when no one is around to be impressed. That's from his Meditations, Book 5. A quote sits on the surface, like a coat of paint. A thought you return to soaks all the way through, like dye. And in another entry, he put it even more bluntly. Stop having long discussions about what a good man is. Just be one. That's Book 10. And here's the strangest part of all. The most powerful man on earth wrote the most quoted lines in this philosophy in a private notebook he never meant a single human being to read. That one fact is the whole difference. And once you see why, you can't unsee it. Hold on to it. So here's the part that changes everything. You don't become what you quote. You become what you repeat when no one is watching. The performed version of this philosophy, the calm captions, the disciplined posts, the morning routine reel, is a costume. And a costume comes off the second someone insults you, the second the plan falls apart, the second no one's around to be impressed. The practiced version is the dye. It went in one private thought at a time, and dye doesn't wash off in the rain. That's the only difference that matters. Which means the fix was never read more, save more quotes. It's smaller and harder than that. Lay down one real thought, in private, where it can't earn you anything. Let me show you exactly how. Let's go back to that notebook, because it's the proof the whole idea rests on. The book we call the Meditations was never written for us. Its oldest title isn't Meditations at all. It's a phrase in Greek that translates as to himself. That's it. To himself. A private journal. No chapters arranged for a reader. No title chosen for a publisher. No audience. The most quoted Stoic who ever lived wrote his Stoicism in a notebook he assumed would die with him. And think about who he was. The Emperor of Rome. He had every reason in the world to perform. Anything he wrote could have been published, carved into stone, read aloud to the empire. And he wrote it for no one. Which means every single line is a man practicing the philosophy on himself, in private, on the worst nights of a brutal rain. Drilling it, quietly, where no one would ever clap. Now compare that to how most of us actually meet this philosophy. We find the quote. We share the one quote. And for a moment, we feel like the kind of person who lives the quote. That warm little glow of having posted something wise, that's the trap. It's the feeling of having practiced, without the practice. This is Book 10, Lived Out. Marcus wasn't arguing about what a good man is. He was being one, in a notebook, with the door shut. And Marcus wasn't the only one who saw this. Centuries earlier, a man named Epictetus, born a slave, became one of the great Stoic teachers. And he gave his students a rule that sounds almost rude. Never call yourself a philosopher, he told them. Don't go on about your principles in front of people who don't share them. Just act on them. At a dinner, he said, don't lecture everyone on the right way to eat. Just eat the right way. The principle is the action, never the announcement. And then he gave them an image I can't get out of my head. Sheep, he said, don't bring their fodder to the shepherd to show him how much they've eaten. They digest it quietly on the inside, and then they produce wool and milk. So don't parade your principles. Digest them, and let them show up as what you actually produce. That's from his handbook, the Enchiridion. And here's what gets me. Two of the most important Stoics who ever lived, centuries apart, one an emperor, one a former slave, both landed on the exact same thing. The philosophy is in the digestion. The private rep, the wool, never in the announcement. You've probably noticed the backlash lately. People calling this whole philosophy a performance, a wall of quotes with nothing behind it. And here's the uncomfortable thing. When it's only quotes, they're right. A philosophy you only perform isn't a philosophy. It's an aesthetic. Because a performed philosophy is outsourced. It needs an audience to exist. The moment the audience leaves, so does the philosophy, because it was never yours. It was theirs to applaud. So here's the only test that ever mattered. Not what you post. What you do the moment someone insults you and no one is watching. The bad day is the exam. The feed is just the rehearsal room, and you can ace every rehearsal and still fail the exam. And I'm not pointing at anyone out there. This is the easiest trap in the world to fall into. I've fallen into it, writing this. The point is to catch the gap in yourself. And none of this means the quotes are worthless. A quote is a doorway. Marcus had his teachers. Epictetus had his. Everyone starts by hearing one line that stops them in their tracks. The doorway is good. The danger is standing in that doorway for 10 years, taking pictures of it, and calling that the journey. And it means the backlash got one thing wrong. Stoicism didn't hit a ceiling. The performance of it did. That was never the same thing as the living of it. The philosophy is fine. It's waiting, the way it always was, on the other side of the doorway. So here is the one thing to do. Not a system. Not a reading list. One move. Today, pick one principle and live it once, in private, where it earns you absolutely nothing. Here's how. First, pick one line you've already saved. Just one, the one that keeps coming back to you. You don't need a new quote. You have more than enough. Second, find the one situation today where that line actually applies. The colleague who gets under your skin. The urge to check who liked the post. The small, stupid unfairness in traffic. And do the thing the principle actually says to do. Quietly. Third, and this is the part that matters most, tell no one. Don't post it. Don't journal it for an audience. Don't drop it into conversation tomorrow so someone knows. Let it be wool, not a press release. Because the second you'd get credit for it, it turns back into a performance, and performance doesn't die anything. The private rep is the only kind that soaks through, because there's no audience to do the work for you. Picture it. Someone says the thing that's clearly meant to wound you, and your hand is already reaching for the perfect comeback. You remember your one line. The best revenge is not to be like that. And you do nothing. You say nothing. And you tell no one afterward. That's the rep. One drop of dye. Character isn't a single moment of insight. It's the color that builds up from thousands of these, all unwitnessed. So here's the whole of it. You don't become what you quote. You become what you repeat when no one is watching. Marcus called it the soul taking on the color of its thoughts. The quotes are a costume, and a costume comes off the first hard day. The dye goes in one private thought at a time, and it doesn't wash off. The most quoted Stoic who ever lived wrote his Stoicism in a notebook meant for no one but himself, because the practice was always private, and the performance was always the part that didn't count. So here's the one thing to do before tomorrow. Pick the single line you've saved that keeps coming back to you. Find the one moment today where it actually applies, the irritating colleague, the unfair little thing, the urge to be seen being calm. Live it once, quietly, and tell no one. Let it be wool, not an announcement. That single private rep, repeated, is the whole philosophy. Everything else is just standing in the doorway, taking pictures. If a Stoicism that survives a bad day is what you came here for, subscribe and keep building it with us. Daily Stoic mentality. Ancient wisdom for the modern mind.